Why, hello, everyone. It's an Adam Carolla subforum, Tony Bobolinsky edition. We're here with the Asian girlfriend, which I'm going to have to stop calling you the Asian girlfriend. Is that right? You don't like being called that anymore? No.
Yeah.
You never like being called that, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will conform to your desires. I thought it was a joke, and I thought you could take a joke because here's the joke part of it. Let me explain the joke part, and then you can continue to tell me not to call you that. So the Asian girlfriend has a connotation that I guess I might have girlfriends of other ethnicities, or that I look at you as just Asian and not as a person, right? That's probably what would be derogatory about that statement, maybe.
It's just why are you getting hung up on it?
Well, I look at you as neither of those are true. So I like to play the opposite of what's true and make the joke. That's why I make the joke. But you find it offensive, and I understand why people that hear it also are like, dude, does she know you call you that? Like, I understand. So you are no longer the Asian girlfriend. And I was going to make a joke and call you the Asian ex-girlfriend, but we're not going to do that either. That's just also a joke. So I will stop referring to you as that. What would you like to be referred to instead of the AGF?
I don't know, girlfriend or something.
Girlfriend or something. Okay, so the girlfriend or something is what we'll go with. All right. All right, now we are going to talk about some things because we just cleared that up. You are a real person. I'm a real person. There's a lot of real stuff going on. So I almost never download the Adam Carolla podcast. You stalk my Reddit activity and listen to everything I do there because you're afraid that I'm going to go in with baby butters or something. I know you do this. So you listened, or you followed to what happened this morning, I guess? You listened to that video, or what'd you do?
You didn't listen to the podcast that Adam did, but
No.
Your podcast.
Yes, of course. That's what most people do in this forum. So you have some things to talk about this, or you have some emotions on this issue?
That's I want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it?
I don't know, because I don't know what you podcasted about, or like what the subject was about. So it was some Bobolinsky guy. So
I've never heard of this guy. Have you heard of this guy before I said his name? Tony Bobolinsky?
Bobolinsky, no. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, the thread here had some references to Q, okay, and QAnon stuff, or that you're going down a QAnon rabbit hole, sort of. And when I hear the term Q or QAnon stuff, I think of what comes to my mind is a disinformation campaign started by our adversaries trying to muddy up the information sphere of our internet, is what I think about with Q. I think about people making up stuff which is just totally made up because it turns your head or something. So that's what I think about when I think about Q. You do not agree with me, right?
Yeah, not necessarily.
Explain your opinion, because obviously I respect your judgment given that you are the girlfriend or something.
There's okay, so think about just the Trump supporters that I've come across. It's they're all very passionate about Donald Trump, and you don't really know why. You're kind of as somebody that's a regular person, you're wondering to yourself, what the hell is going on? Right?
Yeah.
You have to think they're some of them are not really very smart, but in some ways the traditional way that we would to think, but if you talk to them, they're smart in other ways.
Yeah. No, I saw a video. There was a guy who travels around the world going to different destinations, and he popped up in my YouTube feed. I can't remember his name, but I'll dig it up. He went to a private island in Alaska that's almost west of Russia or something by the lines of longitude, right? So it's weird. It's a private island with 3,700 residents or whatever. And they have internet and stuff there. And the one thing in the video, because they don't usually make those videos political when they're travel videos, but the guy said, he's I'm from Florida. And then the guy very Native American looking, or Eskimo. That's the wrong term, but the Native Americans from the Northwest traveled over the land bridge. That type of look. So they're all from that community, and he's like, "Oh, Florida, go DeSantis." That's what he said. Because go DeSantis. And I was like, "What is this guy out in an Alaskan island? Why is he pro DeSantis?" Right? I was like, "That's the weirdest thing," and it's because the media that gets through to his phone and to his town, I think, is tainted with DeSantis propaganda. So it doesn't matter where you are or how smart you are. It's about what you get as media and how you form your opinions. So yes, there are people that believe weird things that are otherwise smart and normal and productive individuals. And it's just a I guess a consequence of the information that we digest. So, but keep going. So what about Q stuff? Or whatever you were talking about with Trump supporters.
Because it's like I feel like they kind of believe in Trump because like he's divulging a lot of secret information that he's come across a lot of secret informations. That's what the whole Q is. Like he recently claimed like that he was directly like involved in the Q stone. So or something like that.
Well, if he's working with the Russians, then arguably he is. Because I think that's who's behind it. I mean, if you just have to look at what's going on there. It's a bunch of lies shrouded in secrecy, and it is attacking certain people. It's attacking the Democratic Party. It's attacking like Hillary Clinton, and it's making up stuff that is polluting the minds of people that are getting that information by like if I told you that Kanye West is secretly an alien and gets anal probed every night. Now all of a sudden that becomes like a South Park meme and a joke. And it's just like the Richard Gere gerbil story of when I was young. It's the same thing going on. So if you just start talking about Kanye West is an alien that gets anal probed every night, all of a sudden that's going to become a joke and somewhat reality, even though obviously it's made up. But that's just how the human brain works, is we take information in whether or not we
Is it obvious though? Is it obvious that it's made up? Because like I mean, the cute thing is like we're getting into like some stuff here. Like we're talking about aliens. We're talking about
it's obviously made up because some of the things that are touted by some of the things that are touted by it are clearly directed at one party or one person and are clearly made up. Like it is Democrats. What's the ones? The Democrats are like molesting children or something in pizza basements or something like that. Like that kind of stuff has potential facts that could be associated with it, and there are none. So it's clearly a directed attempt at someone, which should make you discredit the entire phenomenon, because it's not like people are honest some of the time, even though they are. It's more that people that are lying, and you should understand they have an agenda, and that should make you question everything coming out of them. So you should never give them the benefit of the doubt when it's a conspiracy theory. You have to trust but verify anything coming out of a conspiracy theorist's mouth. That's my opinion.
But I mean, it's not really directed at one party. The whole Epstein thing is like a lot of people. It's a lot of people in politics in general, right? And like in Hollywood or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But not directed at one party.
But there's also no evidence of it ever, so it's all made up.
It's not. There's no evidence.
I'm sure there's no evidence for a lot of their claims. They might try to mix it in with stuff that is sort of believable, but I do not think that Hillary Clinton is raping children in the bottom of a pizza parlor. Like that's what they're saying, right? I don't even know what crap they're saying, but I've heard that.
So, but then like you do believe, but get like Gizmo Max, whatever her name is, like she did get convicted of the whole child trafficking stuff or whatever.
Who did? Who did?
This is like Epstein's partner.
I don't recognize the name. Who's this person?
It's like Gizmo Max Slater.
Yeah. I call her Ghislaine because it's a funny name. Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, she did get. Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein absolutely was taking underage kids to his island with his building that looked like the Jewish flags. Freaking weird, psycho stuff. Yeah, no, that was happening. But what does that have to do with QAnon?
Because they were talking about how all these people that are like elites where like are rich and whatever, they're all taking. I mean, like, why wouldn't they take advantage of, like, it's a power thing, right? It's like, if you're rich and whatever, you can do anything you want, and there's a industry for it, like a secret like industry for it. Like, you would take part in it if that's like your secret desire or whatever, right?
Well, I understand.
Like,
What does this have to do with QAnon?
it has okay, so that's just this one part of the Q thing.
Is saying what? Are they saying things that are in addition to what has been, coming out in court and the Epstein getting arrested and dying? Like, I mean, if you want, there's a lot of conspiracy theory to go around there. Like, the guards were not watching him when he supposedly hung himself in his prison cell. Like, there's a lot of question marks about what actually happened there. Also, according to flight records, Bill Gates and Bill Clinton both have gone down to that island. So it's kind of like you wonder why Bill Gates got divorced from Melinda, and Lord knows the last time Bill touched Hillary. Point is, like, that stuff absolutely probably happened. Are they torturing children in the basement of a pizza parlor? No, I don't think so. And so I think that the QAnon tries to mix reality with stuff.
There's so many children that go missing every day.
But why? But why does Bill Gates have them? Like, you gotta have a reason for making the jump.
You have to start thinking. It's not logical. You have to start thinking about, like, physics, dimensions, and like where this is where the whole aliens and everything comes into.
This is probably really good stuff when you're high on opioids, and that's probably why it's successful.
It's no.
I watched a whole video on opioids and how they interact with the body, and why fentanyl is so deadly, because my name is Ace's Fentanyl. And it's fascinating stuff. Like, like it goes to answer the question, like, when you stub your toe or you stub your finger or something, why the pain numbs and stops essentially, or slows down after you get the initial signal. There's different, I mean, this from going to medical school, but there's different interactions in your body and what kind of signals it sends from your spinal column and then into your brain. And what these opioids do is they put put the signals in a different status. So, like, there's this weird dopamine release when you're blocking pain, and you can excessively block pain with these opioids. And the problem is, you actually, like, die of respiratory failure when you overdose on fentanyl, because your body just essentially gets so relaxed and in the zone that you stop breathing. Like, even your lungs, you got these receptors all over your cells, over your body. Your lungs are just like, wow, I am just loving life. I'm not even going to work anymore. And that's kind of what happens. And it's amazing. Like, you understand why someone goes through opioid withdrawal and why it's the worst thing ever, and why you have to have different, like, narcotics on site to help people surviving during overdoses and such, is that as soon as you stop taking the opioid, when you become addicted to it, all the pain that you had been blocking with the opioid for the period of time, all of a sudden comes back in one fell swoop, which is why withdrawal is so awful. Is everything? Yeah, go ahead.
There's also, like, I don't know how many of those receptors are upregulated when you're overusing the drug, and also
yes, exactly, right.
The dopamine release, like that high, you're not gonna get it anymore.
It's insane. There's a YouTube channel, Institute for Human Anatomy, I think it is. Guy is unbelievable, and he even talks very personally about his fear of opioids. He's like, I've seen, he's a physician, and he's got a half-cut human brain. He's going through his probe, like, showing us where all these interactions are happening. He's like, when I had to go in and get surgery, he's like, they wanted to put me on some opioids. I was just like, no, I don't want any part of it. Just don't do it. I'm too scared. I've seen what they've done to people. I'm the same way. I won't ever touch anything. Like,
that's so dumb. That's like, I mean, it's nothing. Like, I mean, maybe it's different per person, but it's like, it is medicine. There's opioids that are stronger. There's opioids that are, a little bit.
You have to ask the question, if you need to moderate your pain, and you're going to develop a tolerance essentially to something that's moderating your pain, the only solution to getting the same pain relief is to up the dosage. And eventually you get to a point where you're overdoing it. Now,
you use it for like a week.
Right. And then you have to stop, and then you're going to go through that period of withdrawal where everything is extra bad. and you got to make it through that. So I would argue just deal with the pain at the beginning and do it without an opioid. Do it with something else. Not to mention the fact that the opioids also bond to those cells in your gut, which is why everyone gets constipated. And I have a theory about colon cancer and opioid abuse. I'm almost positive they are related. I'm pretty sure they are related in statistically significant studies, because you're cutting off the nerve endings in your gut, and you're not working them as hard. And how you think you develop polyps and all these other things if you're not running the highway of your gut like you should, and you're slowing it down intentionally, you're not sending the right signals, you're going to end up with gut problems and backed up. So another reason I would never touch this stuff. Anywho, all right. So do we want to talk more Q? What else do we want to talk about here? I think the Q is ridiculous. What are you saying about it?
How do I talk about
Yeah, how do you talk about it without looking crazy? I know that's what you're trying to contemplate in your head.
How do I talk about this without talking? Because I know I'm not crazy. I believe in aliens. I believe in all that stuff. I believe in different dimensions and all that stuff. So this is not crazy stuff to me.
Well, but I believe aliens could exist. It's possible. I mean, it's actually likely given the size that we know of the universe and the availability of the amino acids on asteroids and things that can go into atmospheres. And there's absolutely reason to believe that biological life exists in other planets, other solar systems, and so on. But whether they visited here, whether they've taken advantage of apparently probably warping space would be the way to travel faster than the speed of light.
Right.
I did see an article recently about they detected 2 neutron stars hitting each other, and the resulting radiation and explosion and stuff they are calculating to be going three times as fast as the speed of light, and they're wondering whether it's a distortion in their measurements or whether it's possible. I totally believe the speed of light is variable, 100%. It absolutely is. We're talking about substances. Speed of light is not the same through all substances. And I think that you just have to look at the fabric of the universe as a fluid substance, and then you start to realize that the speed of light is 100% variable, and there can be no maximum. The only reason why we think there is a maximum is because of the shape of the fabric of space within which we exist right now. And it becomes too difficult for us to measure outside of that fabric, which is why we think that there's a constant speed of light in a vacuum. I don't think there is.
So you don't have a physics degree or anything, right?
Of course not. But I'm a doctor of everything. You know that.
Okay. So let me put it this way. The reason why I can believe in all this stuff and like technologies that we haven't that are being hidden and all that stuff is because we have all these people that are actually really educated in this stuff. They're physicists, they're into physics or whatever. And it's like, just think about you can come up with that theory yourself, and you're not even a physicist yourself.
But that is a theory that's been crafted from numerous hours of seeing what the current technology and I can't think of how many physics specials I've watched. I mean, I did a YouTube role for 3 or 4 years where I was doing nothing but subatomic structure and learning the standard model and why the standard model doesn't conform to the theory of the large. Basically, we can't get the same physics to work when it comes to looking at planets and stars as we do looking at quarks and atoms and electrons. And so there's a clear need to understand how those things work, and our ability to measure things and do tests is become more prevalent. So we're starting to get more interesting answers. But this is just the availability of information. So, and it's just theories of stuff, but we're trying to explain things that we don't have an explanation for. So what's the point of all that?
The point I was trying to make is there's a lot of really smart people out there, and they have a lot of know-how, and there's us regular people who don't know that much about exactly, other than our YouTube watching and what we learned in school and class and stuff. We don't have professional lives involved in these things, right?
But we do have access to pretty much the same database of current global knowledge. Yes, that is what Google is.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
About all those people working for the military and all their secret technologies, and like all those
Their
like,
secret technologies are somewhat exposed. Like we have lasers that can go and burn things up from extreme distances with high voltage. That is a secret military program that we also release publicly. Like I'm sure that there's a lot of things that, yes, of course, that are concealed and we don't know. But
oh yeah,
I do not think, because of the stories I see about the progress in nuclear fusion and other things that are global changers when it comes to energy, I do not think that there's a big super secret box that the government has that can do everything we want that hasn't come out publicly. I do not think the world works that way. I don't.
those scientific like magazines that are like out in the library, and like all the stuff that we learned about when we were kids, all the scientific magazines that we came to believe are the absolute like newest knowledge about anything. You believe those?
I believe those.
Yeah, like you're talking about like magazines that are like, oh, here's the newest whatever. This is the newest thing we like scientific whatever magazine you think.
All right. Well, I don't look at it in that manner and order, meaning I don't go looking for people who have headlines about this is the next big thing. Instead, I start thinking about problems and thinking about questions that I want to have the answer to, and then I search for them and then find what the most relevant and interesting thing is. Like, for example, like battery technology. Like there are solid state batteries that are under development. They're different than the type of batteries we're using in cars now. And the theory behind them is that the things that cause batteries to degrade, which is dendrite growth, or essentially scum that it gets created on the edge of the anode and the cathode, that doesn't happen in a solid state battery at all, because it's not a fluid like you see in most batteries. That there's the catalyst is not, or I think I'm saying the catalyst, or whatever the area where the electrons are flowing and moving around in solid state situations, a solid thing, which means you can charge it. It can essentially hold more energy longer, and it won't decay the same way. That kind of stuff is being developed. It's actually being developed by a guy named John B. Goodenough, who's another pioneer of technology, and he's like 97 years old or something. I think he's still alive. Point is that kind of stuff is being developed. So I mean, you could call that a secret thing that, the government's holding, and they haven't released solid state batteries on everyone yet because they're holding it for themselves. That's a possibility, but
yeah.
but it's also still being developed in the public sphere as well. So I mean, I just think that the information is there, and you can follow logical paths to answering questions. And most of the answers to those questions are not super secret conspiracies.
You can't just Google. You can't just Google everything. Google doesn't release any information.
No, but you can Google infinite number of things. Basically,
you can Google all you want, and it won't even show up on Google.
Sometimes, yeah, there's a dark web too, but information is wanting to be free now more than ever, and it's easier for people to access.
There's, you know how people like talk about how Google doesn't actually like use a different browser like DuckDuckGo or something, like because Google doesn't release all the information, like they filter out their information. So that's one thing. And then I mean, there's a lot.
You're assuming that filter is bad. You're assuming that filter is filtering out things that you want to see that you can't see.
Yeah.
And that's probably not the case. It's probably filtering out stuff that you shouldn't be seeing, and it would just get in your way.
It's just like I have questions, but I'll Google it, and I'm like, that didn't answer anything. Like none of these articles like answer my question, and really.
What was your question? Give me an example. Give me an example of something you can't answer with Google.
Lots of things. Just like
where are the aliens? Couldn't get a good answer.
Well, maybe, but like, so lots of things. But it's like also think about
name
it.
One.
Like,
name one.
Here's a new conspiracy.
Name one thing you can't answer with Google, please.
I don't know. I will tell you later if I
All right.
All right.
Let the record show you said lots of things and couldn't come up with one.
No, it's just that I've searched so many things, and it's like
I'm just asking for one you remember off the top of your head you couldn't answer.
No, you know how many tabs I have open in my phone?
Oh, I know exactly how many tabs you have open.
Maximum.
I'm on the East Coast, and I'm on the East Coast. You're in Vegas, and your tabs are reaching to my house. I know how big your tabs are.
Yeah. That's how much searching I do, and it's like I can't give you one information because I search so many things.
And one would argue that's how many conclusions you come to as well, because every tab is still open and never getting closed.
Oh, because I get all the information. I try to get all the information I need, and that's why I have so much information. And so,
all right, you can defend your tab usage all you want. if I have 3 tabs open, I'm anxious and I got to close one, even if I'm working on it.
You see the kind of truth searching that I do.
Yeah.
So here's your conspiracy theory. Why are like airline tickets like so expensive? Like why is it $2,000 to go to China, like round trip?
Ton of fuel, customs, leasing areas and airports, maintenance on planes, paying pilots, paying staff,
Sure.
food, all kinds
But
of
why,
stuff. Yeah.
like you know how much traveling? Like I traveled somewhere like to a country, and they told me some secrets about some stuff. It's like you start traveling and like you start hearing real stories about real like things that are like being hidden.
Can you provide an example of this? Where did you travel and,
like,
hear secret stuff from people? Come on, this is great podcast material. What do you got?
Like hey, like that person got disappeared because like he he figured out a way to have cars run on water.
Cars do run on hydrogen already.
Or like it was like a while ago, like before like
Yeah. I mean, listen, well, a car can run on water. The problem with water is water doesn't condense. So you're gonna have to convert the water into something other than using gravity. And water can burn. You know that if you fire radio frequency at water at the right intensity and angle, you can actually make water fry. But that would require the energy to send that radio impulse. So running a car on water doesn't really work because what are you going to use the water to do other than a water wheel, which will get you not very far once the gravity goes.
The theory, the thing was, this car was apparently running like regularly. So
on steam, on what?
No, well, it was. I don't know. I don't know what the
right. I would ask the questions and figure out if it makes sense and conforms to the laws of physics before I just believed it.
Exactly. So like my point was is just if you start traveling and start, going to the sites and like I started sending you things. I was watching Aliens and they were like talking about the different sites like in Italy and stuff, and it was like those are not sites that you would never come across because these are not like names in Italy that you would ever travel to because like Rome, like Sicily, like all the big names, but not like those little towns where it's like, oh crap, like that doesn't make sense.
Are you telling me to take an $1,800 flight to Verona to find a car that runs on water? Sounds like what you want me to do.
No, it's just like you start traveling and you start seeing what is hidden in the world that like us regular Americans will never come across if we don't start traveling.
Regular Americans. All right, well, I'm all for travel. You got me there. I just don't. There's a desire for us to feel as though everything we're yearning to learn is hidden from us and that it's a conspiracy. It's something about human nature. I think
there's people that see ghosts, there's people that have seen aliens, there's so much going on that it's like it's so much more believable for me to because like when you die, think about it. When you die, what happens to you?
Nothing.
Like
you die, you decay. Everything that was working in your body just starts to decay. And
that's not true because we're energy. We're energy. This is just a material.
We do have energy passing. We have electrical connections essentially going off and synapses going off in our bodies all the time.
It's been reproduced in physics. Like this is stuff that we learned in class. This has been reproduced in physics where energy, energy becomes matter when you have somebody viewing.
I think the question that Google can't answer here is, can you please measure and describe the energy portion of the human consciousness and its mass and attributes is essentially what you're trying to say. You're being like, well, a human being is a body and it's also energy as well flowing through it. So I think you're trying to get at.
It's energy. It's like no. I'm talking about materialization of yourself is like, and this is getting into metaphysics. This is what I actually believe about consciousness and we're conscious beings, right? And it's like our consciousness is what we're able to materialize. All our bodies are materialized based on like whatever our consciousness, our will is, like.
You are what you are. You are what you eat. Maybe you are what you are. I guess what you're trying to say. Well, I
But
mean, we're going spiritual down a route, and I guess kind of, I don't know. I just think I I don't have a religious or a greater purpose view on this one, which is just that we're biological organisms, we're a bunch of cells working together that have evolved that way. And the true meaning of life, I feel like, is to pass on your genes, and then you die, and you just die.
and if
And
you don't,
uh,
and if you don't, it follows genetic information. If the universe is
well,
destroyed, what is
if the universe is destroyed, what happens? Nothing. Yeah, it's
nothing?
nothing. Like that does blow your mind when you have that thought about, like, what is, if you could take a bird's eye view on the universe, like, what are you looking at? Like, how did it come to be? How does it all work? Why are we here? Like, all kinds of weird stuff. It's just stuff that it seems to be just too big for the human brain to comprehend. I mean, how can we comprehend the fabric of everything? That's why, like, Elon Musk comes out with these ideas about us living in a simulation that someone else is simulating. These are things that we just can't figure out the answers to, and it goes to a fundamental thing about existence, and it's just
The CIA came out with something about like they admitted that we live in a hologram or something. Like there was something that they put out.
the CIA admitted we live in a hologram. That doesn't
Yeah,
sound like a conspiracy theory. I mean, there are certain measurements that they try to do, and they try to infer that we're actually not living in what we see, and that kind of backs up the simulation thing. But we're just talking about crazy theoriness here, and at some point you have to come down to earth
it's
and live
not.
in the world you live in.
Come on. It's just so crazy. It's like, I don't actually. It's like you mentioned anything metaphysical, and you're like you deny it like automatically. It's like you have never had some kind of like.
Looking for proof, and I want the proof not to be. I don't want it to be a personal recollection from somebody. I'm looking for what I would consider to be hard proof. Um, I mean, I'll put it. Here's some hard proof, like quantum entanglement. Quantum
Yeah,
entanglement's a freaking. I mean, talk about something that doesn't make any sense. How can two things instantaneously be tied together through some fabric or some dimension that we are unable to detect,
yeah,
but we are able to measure it and accurately say this is happening? That's
yeah,
fascinating,
yeah,
because there's a connection that we can't measure that dimension properly. I
yeah,
would argue that probably what's behind that is that at a dimension we cannot measure, there is an interaction between molecules and bonds, and that speaks to a lot of metaphysical things, because people always want to try to explain bonds that cannot be seen between people, between things. So there probably is something going on there. Now, how they get wound up and set to be entangled is a very interesting question, because they can do this now, but I don't know how they do it, or what's behind that. So I would like to learn more about that if you want to get
there's
metaphysical.
there's so much proof. There's so much proof already out there in physics. Just we don't know about it. There's like that experiment I was talking about. They teach it. They teach that in like high school, in like college physics. They like there was a mathematician that like found that he like found that there was like code encoded into our reality, and so like all of this is numbers and everything.
All right, I should start using that Netflix account that I pay for, that you use, to find some of these things and go over this, because I'm clearly not watching enough. But all right, we've gone on too long. This has been an awesome podcast. I'm throwing this up in the subreddit in its own thread. It is the podcast with the girlfriend or something is what we will call it. And I'm sure everyone will be happy to see that you have not thrown me out like yesterday's dishwater bathwater or whatever, because of my racial comments about your about your name and status. All right, so we're moving on. Good times. That's the All Right and Cool stuff form. Do you want to say anything to anybody? Do you want to say anything to Baby Butters? Do you want to tell her to watch it? What do you want to do?
Stop trying to make people fight.
Me?
Yeah.
Who am I trying to make fight?
Stop instigating stuff.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it was a good podcast. So let's just end it.
Yep.
Like that.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. All right. Good luck, everyone. Enjoy your podcast. May all of them be listenable.